fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. I'm Jaime En Fuego, welcoming you to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment. That's right, and yes, you can just call me Fuego for short. So pleased to have you here for a discussion about essentially the series finale of sorts. We know there's still more movies coming, obviously including a Spider-Man movie here in just a couple of months. But yeah, we're here to talk Avengers Endgame, the sequel to Avengers Infinity War, which was one of the best Marvel, if not maybe the best Marvel movie, in my estimation at least. It was one of the best movies in any genre that I saw last year, and so I was extremely anticipating this, and of course for that sheer fact it did bear a slight burden of expectation, but I gotta say for the most part it really did deliver, and it is a very drastically different film than Infinity War in a lot of ways. So this is going to be a non-spoiler review, and that's because I'm going to be doing a lengthy spoiler discussion with Cecil Laird, my co-host on the horror show, and we're hoping Luis Hernandez, who's also been seen on the horror show before, one of our rotating pieces that steps in when he can. But yeah, we're going to be that separate reviewing non-spoiler ourselves, and so I always like to cover the bueno, the malo, and the feo here on Enfuegotainment, and the bueno is definitely in abundance in this movie. It essentially picks up right after the previous Infinity War left off. Yeah, everybody knows what that's about. Half the people on the planet disappeared. Yeah, just gone, including a whole bunch of our heroes and some of our biggest names, and it was just ironic how it essentially boiled it down to the original Avengers team way back to the first film. You know, we lost all of these additional players that were added as more and more pieces came into play in the universe. Like we lost our Sony shared Spider-Man, we lost Doctor Strange, we lost all of the Guardians except for Rocket. And then there was other people we lost that don't come back in this without spoiling stuff. But yeah, I gotta say, it's in a lot of ways, it's a much more personal and focused film, at least as far as the amount of characters that they really put the emphasis upon. And that's because with, just breaking it down to just Thor and Tony and Cap and Hawkeye really getting some serious time to chew on the screen. And then I guess we along with Rocket, we do have Ant-Man, and both of those actors shine. And you know what, I have to say, with the exception of Thor, Chris Hemsworth stealing the show once again, and I loved what they did with his character, because you see in the trailers that there's characters who look one way at one particular time in the film, and then they look another way at another particular time, and so you at least got the impression some time has passed. I'm not going to specify how much or anything like that, but yeah, some time, there is kind of a time jump in this film. And so the state that we find Thor in after the time jump is utterly hilarious, and it creates running joke after joke after joke, and Hemsworth once again steals the show with his comedic chops, proves that he is a force to be reckoned with, of just a great comedic variety. But and then also lots of credit to Paul Rudd. He's terrific in this. I love seeing him get more of a shine. Hawkeye is also he's not funny, like it's really amusing because you get great humorous performances, from Thor and from Ant-Man, who does great in the additional screen time, but then you get a great dramatic performance from Hawkeye, who I was almost going to give him like the MVP, the unsung, just biggest surprise in this, because of the movie starts out with a scene with him, and it's just like so effective, so just well sequenced and constructed, and gets you in the feels in such a great fashion, and it gives you context as to why he wasn't in the first Avengers film, which is really great. But really, the one that I have to give so much more credit than I was anticipating to, and you got some threads of it in Guardians 2 and in Infinity War, but Karen Gillan, I believe her name is, she impressed me so much with her dramatic just, I mean, she really just blew me away, man. She's terrific, and I'm sad that I haven't seen a lot more with her in it. I know she was in Oculus. She's been in various other films. I think she's even taken her hand at directing recently. So she's either Irish or Scottish. I'm trying to remember, but she is a super babe in real life. But you would never tell with all of the, you know, the makeup and the bald cap and all this stuff. But damn, is she so good. Another thing that I have to just dance around in this, but once again they kind of gave you the impression that this was going to be the case in the TV spots and in some of the previews and stuff like that. You know that we're going to have to jump around kind of in time to figure this situation out. And this film essentially becomes Back to the Future 2 of the Avengers, just of the MCU period. And you see so many faces that you didn't even see. It's funny because a lot of faces that you didn't see in Infinity War, you see in Endgame. And so for that reason, they really do feel like, well, as they were originally intended, despite the fact that they didn't end up calling them, you know, the Avengers 3 Part 1 and Avengers 3 Part 2. They ended up just breaking them in half, and they were always supposed to be two separate films, you know, or at least if I recall correctly. But so many of those familiar faces cameo in this from various Marvel films that we did not see in Infinity War. So it's really, you know, we have our heroes that took up so much of the screen time that are in both movies, like, you know, Thor and Tony, obviously. Cap gets more screen time in this. That's the thing. This is more of a balanced movie as far as the focus it gives to the people that it's not jumping around to as many different storylines and underserving some of those storylines, like unfortunately happened in Infinity War, like the Wakanda stuff and Cap and his peeps and so on. I felt like in Infinity War they totally took a back seat to the Guardians, which made sense because of how much they charmed people with their two movies. The Ragnarok was so popular and in vogue at the time. So, you know, Thor and Tony and the Guardians and stuff, like they took center stage, I thought, and you know, the others took a back seat. Whereas in this one, I felt like there was more balanced coverage, and we do like break the team off a little bit at certain times in the narrative. And I actually felt like that was when the film was at its strongest. The film was at its strongest, bueno-wise, in the second act, when when there's not really a lot of action going on, but it's when the film is at its funniest, and it's when it's the most at its Back to the Future 2-ishness, yeah, I guess. And Back to the Future 2 is actually my favorite in that series. A lot of people, it is their least favorite. I love it. Love it, love it. It's once again, as you would expect from a movie with this much Disney money behind it, it is an incredible looking film as well. But I will definitely segue into the MALO, because there is some MALO in this movie. The third act, especially big confrontation battle, it's so CGI heavy, and even more CGI heavy, I think, to a degree than Infinity War and the big fight in that, and in some of these other, you know, big superhero comic book movies and stuff. And I feel like it turns into, I won't say like a big on-screen mess of so much going on, but the thought crossed my mind a little bit in the third act. And yeah, I don't know. It was a little much. I felt like the turkey was overstuffed just a little bit. And I will also use that to bridge into the fact that whereas Infinity War did not feel like its runtime, Endgame felt like its runtime to me. It really, really did in comparison. And it really, as far as the bad, it boils down to, this is really, and this will probably come as no surprise to people, this is the Return of the King compared to the Two Towers. This is the Return of the Jedi compared to Empire. Whichever you prefer, I think you will probably at least find the context within this. The very, very end of this movie definitely felt Return of the King-ish to me, with, I'm like, oh, there's more, oh, there's more, and then there's more. Although, I'll get to it in the Feo, there's some stuff, man, there's definitely some stuff. But yeah, it felt its runtime. I don't know, I'm of the weird bass-backwards ilk where I prefer the Two Towers to Return of the King, but yet I prefer Return of the Jedi to Empire Strikes Back. So I don't know, I mean, I still love all 4 of those films and in different fashions and different aspects and whatnot. But I think especially as far as tone with Jedi and Empire in comparison, that's probably a better way of describing this without spoiling things. What else? There's not really a lot of bad. Those are just very small little qualms that I had about this. It felt its runtime, and it's when it does come down to just as cameo heavy to a degree as this is, certain characters get like a line, like a single line, and you're just like, okay, all right, interesting. Well, I guess that's all you can really do when there's so many characters and, a decade plus of different threading narratives and stuff like that to work your way through. But there's really not a lot of bad about this movie. It is epic as fuck! And, the Feo, the ugly that I will bridge into is the fact that you have to know that not everybody is going to be around. And I had something spoiled for me. I'm not here to spoil, obviously. However, I'm glad there was only one thing spoiled for me as opposed to a lot of different things that could have been spoiled for me. There's certain characters you may think are going to come back. Maybe they don't. There's certain characters you think will survive through all of this. Maybe they don't. It's really... That's the tough thing when you're not trying to spoil anything. I cried at the end of this movie, legit, and I heard other people in the theater, like, I heard the sniffles starting, and I was having to take off the 3D glasses and, like, wipe them and stuff, because I was like, I promised myself I wouldn't cry! And, of course, I did. It definitely, the end, even if I found, the overuse of CGI and just the big craziness a little on the ugly side, because it's just so much in this big epic end battle. It's of that good ugly where we get to certain beats in the end of this film, I must say. Another thing, and I guess I don't consider this a spoiler, but do you want to know if there's an end credit scene or not? If not, you had your chance. There's no end credit scene of any kind. There's no mid-credit scene, there's no end credit scene, there's all this speculation. Are we gonna get a hint at mutants? There's so much that they could have done. Maybe even a tie-in directly to Far From Home? No, nothing. And another ugly that I have to mention is that when you're dealing with the essence of time travel and multiple versions of people, perhaps things will inevitably get a little bit convoluted, especially when you don't explain all of your rules and rationale, because depending on whether it's the Terminator or Back to the Future, or there's one particular scene where they are very in a meta fashion talking about so many different time travel movies. I don't think they mentioned the butterfly effect, but they even mentioned Time After Time, the one about the one with Malcolm McDowell going after Jack the Ripper, if I remember correctly. And speaking of which, Mary Steenburgen, Back to the Future 3. But yeah, the rules are not completely explained, and I feel like there's some plot holes of explanation within all of this, but I'm not gonna go into detail because I'm not trying to spoil things for you. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're gonna watch this and say, hey, Fuego, I think they explained everything pretty well. You're just nitpicking, man. Well, maybe. At the end of the day, I prefer Infinity War for some reasons, but then especially for the second act and some of the genuine creative fun we have with this. I don't know. There's a lot of cool surprises too. There are, especially some of the situations we end up in, and this is where I'm really having to dance around the lines. But as a whole, I'm going to say that the sequel to Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, is a 4 out of 5. It is a Fuego film, but I can't go in Fuego. It's not a 5 out of 5. It's not a 10 out of 10 like I've seen some people gushing about, but it's definitely a crowd pleaser, like 85-90% of the time. But hey, I'm here to try to accurately and objectively, discuss a film with you and just give my personal thoughts about it. These are my thoughts and mine alone. If you disagree, that is totally okay, because art in film in particular is indeed subjective. So I've been Jaime En Fuego, and you can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, which is where you're watching me here, obviously. If you dig the video, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell thing so that you get a notification about any time I put up a new review like this, or occasionally a trailer reaction, or a retro review. Revenge of the Sith was supposed to go up yesterday. It's going up this weekend. Yeah, I was trying to work on it, and then I was originally not going to see Avengers on the Thursday preview night. I was going to wait till Friday and make sure I saw it in IMAX so that I could see it. They shot the whole damn thing on IMAX cameras, but at least for my first viewing, I didn't get to see it on IMAX cameras. But I am going to go see this a second time on Saturday. I'm going to see the full scope and the intention of the Russos, and I think that'll give me some proper context with a second viewing of a film that I really loved like this one. I didn't adore Over the Moon it, but I loved it. You know, it's a trip down memory lane with these characters, and they hit you with some nostalgia, man, especially if you're someone like me who's not as supremely familiar with all the comic lore that they're deriving from for this, but you've been there every single step of the way through every Marvel movie, seen every Marvel movie in theaters, which is what I've done. So look forward to that discussion with the horror show peeps, and if you want spectacular coverage of stuff featuring yours truly, you definitely have to go to youtube.com/thehorrorshow channel. That's where we do trailer reactions and film reviews, and we do at least an episode or two every single day. Cecil and I are actually going along with our partner in crime, Ms. Susie von Slaughter. The first weekend of May, we will be in Dallas for Texas Frightmare as press. We're going to be talking to different booths, a couple of filmmakers. It's going to be pretty exciting. It's been a little while since I've been to the Big D, not since my little broski was working there. Going to school there before that, so yeah, it's gonna be fun. And you know, I've only been to Texas for a horror convention once before, and it is unfortunately the dearly departed Housecore Horror Film Festival, which ended after none other than the partner of Mr. Pantera, Down, Superjoint, to the Illegals himself, Mr. Phil Anselmo, his partner, the guy who helped him organize that. It was basically a metal/horror film festival and just concert series. It was really amazing. That was in Austin though, so I have not been to a horror convention in Dallas, so this should be a lot of fun. If you happen to see us out there, or if you are anywhere close in the Texas area, definitely make sure to jump out and try to check out the event, because it looks, between Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell and all of these other awesome guests, it's gonna be pretty badass. So once again, I've been Fuego, y'all have been awesome, and until the real of comes around once more, I shall say hasta luego, cinemigos, and constant viewers. I hope that we get to share a little bit more of this entertainment palaver sooner rather than later. Adios.